I know.
It's brand new.
You look down here and not up there?
Yeah, I was looking at him instead of the camera. So, everyone, welcome to Coffee with Carmen. I'm here with Dr. Ross, and so we were trying to, think about what the topic was, and I felt like God said, you know what? Talk about when you're having to trust me while you're waiting, but as single parents, because so many things come up.
Mm-hmm.
I know when you're a single parent, and you know that it's only you and God.
Mm-hmm.
And so our topic is God is with you while you're waiting. God is with you while you're waiting. And being a single parent, we have to wait on God a lot. Right.
What's he with me down there? Sorry.
So, but before we start talking, let's have
A sip.
a sip, because I always want to have a sip. So good. But yeah, so we were discussing about being a single parent and how hard that can be, and just the challenges that brings into our lives. And not just that, but there was a season while I was a single parent, still am, but I didn't have a vehicle for like over a year. And just the challenge of that and waiting on God to be able to purchase a vehicle, and just having to save up money because I knew I had to pay cash for it.
Yeah.
So just trusting God through those things and so many other things that come with being a single parent and allowing God to lead you through it.
Yeah.
So, but what are your thoughts on that? I know you and I are both single parents.
Yes, both single parents. And I think it's, it can feel isolating at times, and like you said, it's only you and God. And so what we had talked about was like, when you're married or you're in a relationship with somebody, like you have that option to go to them and talk through your problems. That's sweet for you. You have that option to talk to them about your problems and to work through those together. Whereas when you're single, that's not there, and your only option is to go straight to God and to talk to Him about these things. And so that can be challenging because sometimes it feels like you're talking to air, like it doesn't feel like God hears you. It can be very frustrating sometimes. And so I think that, as you work through those things, like you learn more and more to listen and to hear God's voice. But it is, I always say it's a process. And just being single and trying to navigate those things alone with your kids while you're raising kids, and the challenges of that. And am I doing things right? Am I making the right decisions? Am I, parenting them right? Am I projecting? I always am like, am I projecting my own issues onto my kids? Like I'm constantly aware of these things, just because I know, even in my background, my counseling and psychology background, I know the impact that has for kids growing into adults. So all these challenges, and you really have to learn to turn to God first.
And I know, like for me, when I knew, okay, I'm a mom and I have to leave my children, I decided, and this isn't for everyone, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to leave them with God. And just, I wasn't going to date, I wasn't going to do any of those things. I wasn't going to try to figure things out, trying to figure out, something else. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And for me anyway. And so I focused on spending time with God. I focused on reading the Word. I focused on pouring all that I had towards my children, but it was God leading me.
Yeah.
Even that season when I didn't have a vehicle, God made it work for me where I was able to get to work. I mean, He just worked it all out, and it wasn't like I only had one job. I had two jobs.
Yeah.
And, my kids played sports, and, and looking back, I'm like, God, there's no other way that this could have happened, but it was you. And while I was waiting, I wasn't even waiting for a car, He made things happen.
Yeah.
Then I had the vehicle, and it turns out that the vehicle was a one owner. I paid a great, got a great deal on it. It lasted me for a lifetime. And, to the point where even like my children all learned how to, the younger ones all learned how to drive that vehicle. But You know, it's one of those things where you realize how God is totally in everything.
Yes.
Being a single parent isn't easy. I had a lot of hard times. I remember walking into the house and back in the home where I was at then. It wasn't like APS, it was SRP, and the box would be when it was low, and I had 24 hours to reload that box for electricity. And I remember I would be walking in, my daughter would say, "Mom, it started beeping at 2 o'clock." So then I would be like, "Okay, God, you know, I have 24 hours," and God always made a way.
Yeah.
And those are the moments where you know that God is with you, you know, as you're waiting, He's coming through for you. And then you cry because you're just like, God, like, you know, like, I know life can be so hard, but then you come through.
Yeah.
And then those tears, through those tears, you rejoice.
Yeah.
You rejoice because He comes through for you.
Yeah.
You rejoice because He makes a way. You rejoice, but you have to continue to keep going. You can't just dwell in what's happening in the moment. And that is hard. I'm not sitting here to tell you it's easy, but I know with God and trusting God and knowing that while you're waiting, He's working through everything because He's way ahead of the time. Yeah. And that's the one thing that He showed me, that He was always ahead. He was always ahead. He was always making a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is, the waiting part is like the idea that, okay, I'm waiting on you, God, but waiting, it's not my time. It's not my timing. It means I'm waiting on His timing, which sometimes can be very frustrating. Yeah. And for me, at least, like in, you know, because I've been single as a single parent 6 years now, and it's you longer than that, and so it's in those moments of when you kind of are like, okay, God, where are you? You know, and there is moments where I'm like, okay, like God, God, the mortgage is due. You know, like there's moments like that I've had recently because of my career transition, but just to remind yourself that my timing is not God's timing. Right. God's timing is not my timing. Right. And He ultimately has a better plan and purpose. And I think that's a lot of the reason why, and we were talking about this earlier, about choosing to be single as you have. Because then you're not distracted. Right. And there's the temptation of being distracted and being pulled from your purpose. And I think God's intention and idea is that, you know, your purpose really takes precedence. Like what you're here on earth to do is more important. If He has a relationship that supports that purpose, then great. But if not, like it's the purpose that matters. Right. So,
and I agree with that. I know that with me, that's the one thing that I said to God. If there's ever a time that I no longer will be single, that would be because whoever knows you and loves you and walks with you the way I do, and even bigger than that, I will know. Yes. And so that just removed that whole idea of believing that there had to be someone there to fill the spot that God was filling. Yeah. And so God continued to show me how faithful He is, and even to this day, His faithfulness shines. You know, even in the finances, you know. Being a single parent and then having children at different ages. I mean, at that time, I had teenagers, and then I had the younger ones that were in grade school. And so just knowing that, I mean, teenagers are expensive. Yes. And not only that, they want to drive. You know, and once I had a vehicle, you know, I always said to them, well, if you want to drive, then you need to get a job. Yeah. And just so that to teach them responsibilities, but at the same time, God showed me that, just like me. In order for me to be able to move forward, I knew that I had to be in the Word, trust God, know that He was going to come through for me, and He was building me through it, because as I was believing for something, God would say, here you go. And I kept believing, He would say, here you go. No matter what it was, He always came through, even though, like we said, God is with you while you're waiting. I was waiting. but he was there. And as a single parent, he continued to be there. And I know one of the verses that I always share is Psalms 119:105. It says, "Your word is a lamp to guide my feet and light of my path." And that's the one thing I learned early on, was that his word did that for me and kept me strong and focused while being a single parent to this day. You know, I still have boys in college. Yeah. And they, I think the situation came up, and it wasn't, one of my sons got injured. But it was like God right away took me to his word, and I knew how to stand and help him stand and believe. And what did he do? He turned around and did the same. He sent, like, what God was saying to him through it. And those are the things of being a single parent, allowing God to lead you, helps them when they're in those situations to know God is with me. God is leading me. He's giving me that strength. And me as a single parent, I was able to see how God spoke to him. At the same time, he sends it to me, knowing, you know what, what did he write? He put on there, "I serve a powerful God." Because God showed him his faithfulness through his injury. So these are the things, being a single parent, you glorify later, like who God's been within you and showing them, they turn around and they're doing the same thing.
Yeah. That's the hope, is you're being the example for them.
Right.
In the moment, doesn't always
in
feel
the
like
moment,
that
it doesn't. I mean,
No.
I shared in the past, I used to close the door sometimes and just cry out to God, and
Yeah.
I mean, real tears.
Yeah. Well, because you're alone. It feels like you're alone in this, because you are physically, you are alone.
Right.
God is with us always, but sometimes in the moments when you're trying to raise your kids, and it's frustrating or exhausting or whatever it might be, it's like you are walking that valley alone. But it's also, because you are alone, you learn, at least for me, to hear God's voice better.
Right.
Like, if I had somebody else to have a conversation with or talk with, and I know I share a lot of things with you that God shares to me, and we do this back and forth, but like, by having to listen for God's voice and having to wait on him, you learn to hear it better and clearer.
Right.
And then it becomes like, I don't know, more, you become more confident in it.
Right.
And your faith builds.
Right.
Like you said, with each time, it's like builds your faith. And it's challenging because it's probably, I know marriage has challenges, but being a single parent raising kids is probably pretty difficult. Like one of the most difficult things, I'd say.
Yes.
And then, you have what they're up against. Like, I always see it as I am standing in the gap for them. Like, I am the one that is standing. Right. And just like, my parents did for me, of praying and standing in the gap for me to walk in that freedom with Christ. And, it says, raise up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So it's like, while they're young is when you're investing all of that. Right. And they may waver as they grow older. And I know, like in my life, I definitely wavered. My parents were probably like, "What the heck did we do?" But and then you come back to it, and then so that's the hope with raising our kids, is that would become the foundation for them.
Right. And while you're going through it, and you're raising them, and you're trying to do the best that you can, the challenges are there. Even like with them trying to understand it all, and us as parents trying to lead them, but at the same time learning how to talk about it. I know for me it was hard in the beginning, for a long time. Yeah. I really didn't talk about it. I didn't know how to talk about it. And you might find yourself in that situation where you just don't know how to talk about it. You don't know what to say. All you can do is trust God and him giving you the strength to at least lead them and to show them that he's real through all the mess. Because it is messy. Yeah. It's, it's messy. And sometimes, I remember how it was for me. Sometimes I would be like, what the heck's going on right now? And I'm here trying to make it look good. At the same time, it's messy. Yeah. And all I can say is, God, okay, I need you.
Yeah.
And even those moments where, each child reacts differently. Through the messiness, through the hardships, through the moving, um, trying to make sure that they know it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Some of them, I'm not going to say it was perfect. Like, um, some of them decide that it's your fault. And they're angry and they lash out. And you have to, and then others are quiet and aren't talking about it. And me trying to figure all that out.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is, God, I need you right now.
Yes.
I need you to show me how to embrace them, how to show them that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that God gave me His strength. I'm grateful that through those seasons they saw His strength through it all. And they saw how He moved forward, even, with the home where I'm at now. Yeah. How God made a way, because where we were at, it wasn't a healthy place.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff would happen.
Yeah.
And so God allowed them to see how He made a way where it became peaceful. And this is just something that we wanted to talk about because, God has been there and He has given me a joyful heart. And not only that, it's because He gave me the freedom to forgive. Because when you forgive and you let it go, then God comes in and He's able to lead you and you're being led at peace. Yes, those things come, but you learn to say, okay, God, I'm following you. And you are my focus point.
Yes.
So that our children can see that through those hardships, through the messiness, our focus is on Christ. And I believe that's why, for me, I decided I was on a date because I felt like, well, I'm going to bring other stuff in, and how is that going to be healthy?
Yeah.
How are they going to see the goodness of God if I do that? So, but that was me. That's not for everyone.
Yeah. No, it's a challenge. It really is a challenge because it's like I've prayed and asked God, it's almost like you have to have, you said, being focused, like He's your focal point. It's almost like you have to have tunnel vision, just on. And lately, this for me has been coming up with God kind of reminding me, stay focused, stop getting distracted.
Right.
Getting distracted, the shiny things.
Oh, what appears to be shiny.
Yes, stop picking up the shiny things because they're just distractions.
Right.
So just reminding me of that, because like you said, you're right that your children they see what goes on, they see the example more than your words.
Right.
And so I think that's the scary thing is they're watching all the time. They're watching all the time.
Right.
So what I'm doing, what I'm saying, is having an impact. And so if you're dating or you're bringing other people into the picture, it's where is God in that?
Right.
And I want them to see God and not see X, Y, and Z things and relationships and all of that.
Yeah. And so, and even now, like I said, I'm witnessing the strength of God in my children, and I know that they're all at different places, but I know the rewarding thing for me through being a single parent is now when my children send me scripture, send me a song that ministers to them. They'll send me someone they listen to and say, what do you think about this? And those are the rewards of through the struggles. When they get older and they start sharing these things with you, you're just like, thank you, God.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had a moment like that last week in our last basketball game, and at the end, they bring both teams together, and they always ask at the end, does anybody want to pray? And my oldest, she stood up and raised her hand and said, I want to pray. And she prayed in front of the coaches and 20 players, and just for her to see that, and her having that bravery and courage in that moment, it's just okay, God, just that little nugget. That's what I needed in that moment for that week to carry on with, like, okay, God does see, He hears.
Right.
I'm not alone in this.
Right. And those are the shiny nuggets that God wants you to say yes. That's the one that, you know.
That's one you can pick up.
Yeah.
Pick that one up, not this one.
Yeah, and it's just, and it's a beautiful thing when we witness our children doing that, especially when you have been a single parent.
Yes.
And for me, it's been a long time. And just the reward of seeing those things come now through them, it brings such a joy. And these are tears of joy because, you know, doing it when you're walking through it, sometimes you just feel the weight of it.
Yeah.
You feel that weight, and you're just like, okay, God. And that's what it says, like, God is with you while you're waiting. While you're feeling that weight, God is with you, and then He'll lift it up. Why? Because He's a faithful God. And I had written here Hebrews 13:5, for He has said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. And that's the thing that I know. He has never left. He has always been there. And He will forever be there through everything.
Yeah, He's the one consistent thing. Which, you know, a lot of times we look to other humans for that, and that's not
Right.
Not realistic. We think it is in our head,
Right.
but it's not. And so, you know, you talk about being single, it's because God is an unreliable thing.
Right.
Like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's other people. People are human. We
Right.
make mistakes
Right.
and whatnot. So.
Yeah. And He's the one that, you know, He gives us His strength and His courage. You know, He gives us His peace.
Divine strength.
Yes. And there's no other way but to do that. I know I had written down a few scriptures, and I did write, you know, one thing that I always say to my kids is, like, you have to be courageous. You have to be willing to move, because it's hard. It's hard to step out in something you can't see, but God can. You know, and that's why He spoke everything into existence.
Yep.
You know, our breath is His breath that He gives us on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I know last week I shared about, you know, being in the vehicle with my son, and now, you know, you let go of the steering wheel and it just keeps going. And God's like, let me do that for you. You know, and as being a single parent, you let God do that for you. Years pass and you realize, you know, through everything you've been there, through the waiting of anything, He's always there because He's ahead of it. He's always ahead of us.
Yeah, it is a huge. It's hard to take a step when you don't know what's next.
Right.
And just, you know, sometimes you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to take that step going forward and figure it out as you go. And that's, you know, there's no manual, there's no like instructional book on what to do.
Right, and that's why we need the Word of God, because through it, He does give you that strength. He does give you the courage to move forward. He does give you the I don't know, you walk in a different light. Like, I know for me, His confidence in me is so big that I just want to share it with everyone. Like, I do, and sometimes I've used this word before where I feel like some people are like, well, what planet does she live in? Well, I live in this planet. Right here, the Word of God, this is the planet I live in. And when you read it, you realize that through it all, He never leaves you alone. And even in Joshua 1:9, it says, I have commanded you, be strong, it says, and courageous. Be not afraid, neither be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And we have to believe it. You know, being a single parent, you have to believe it. He's with you everywhere you go, not just us, but our children. He's always with them. You know, He shared with me a long time ago. They're His, and I'm here to guide them.
Yes. I had somebody send me something recently that said they're on loan.
Yeah, but we have to
Yeah.
We have to guide them. They have to see that single parenting with God brings a different light into their home. Mm-hmm. Even though you hear the box beeping and you have 24 hours to put something in there, you know, so that you can have electricity the following day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Or you get a check in the mail.
Yeah.
That's like the amount that you need.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. I think it really, because it's like that, it really gives you, like, the more, like, there's more space for God to move and do miracles like that, because you are waiting and you are depending on Him. Like, I don't know where my next, whatever income is going to come from. Like, I'm waiting on you, God, to provide it, and you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and then He does. But it's like there's space for God to just move and do miracles.
Right.
More so than like if you were, I don't know, not single. I feel like there's a lot of space because you are depending on Him.
Right. And even when you are, like the marriage is wonderful. Mm-hmm. I believe in marriage, and there's a different type of unity, especially when you're leading your family and you're married and you're leading with Christ. God moves in those places too in abundance. I mean, I witnessed that too when I was married. But at the same time, God showed me through me being single and raising my children that He never ever just decided to say, well, you're on your own, and figure it out,
Yeah.
Because that happens. When you're not married anymore, a lot of times that happens. They're like, well, figure it out. Well, I've closed that door. I'm living life my way. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, God, it's you and I, because life has changed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so.
What was I going to read? No, I don't think I'll read that.
I can read Matthew 20:20. It says, teaching them, this was when they were being taught to observe everything that I have commanded you, and behold, I am with you all the days to the very close and consummation of age. So basically, God is always with us. He is always with us. And those are the things that we need to hold on to, is that He's always with us. And through our singleness, raising our children, He's with you, He's guiding you, He's protecting you, He's opening doors that need to be opened, He's closing those that shouldn't be there. He gives you discernment on a lot of things. Discernment means that He just gives you that peace. That peace that, okay, this is the way you should go.
Yeah.
And
He reveals things to you.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. It's like, nope, not that way.
Right.
This way.